All right, it is Tuesday, and today we're going to be talking about geometric series. So your first formula, make sure you write this down on your formula sheet, is the partial sum of a geometric series. And we have the sum of n number of terms equals a sub 1 times 1 minus r to the n all over 1 minus r. And don't forget, we can write it in summation notation using the sigma. And your first term is down here, number of terms is at the top. And then notice this is the explicit formula that we learned yesterday. That's going to be your rule. And anytime you see a number that has an exponent, it's going to be a geometric series. So let's get started. Okay, our first problem is the summation as k equals 1 to 6 of negative 3 times 2 to the k minus 1. So let's write down our formula. S sub n equals our first term times 1 minus r to the n all over 1 minus r. All right, getting all of our information from this, if I plug in a 1 for my first term, I get 1 minus 1, which is 0. Anything to the 0 power is 1. 1 times negative 3, I know that my first term is negative 3. The other thing in this form that I like is whatever has the exponent, that's your r value. So it's going to be 1 minus 2 over 1 minus 2. And now I just need to know my number of terms. So my n value is going to be that 6. So put everything in your calculator at once. And if you don't have a graphing calculator, you don't have a scientific calculator, you can actually download Desmos scientific calculator onto your phone. And it looks a lot better than the 4-function calculator, of course. But when you put this whole thing into your calculator, you get S sub 6 because I'm adding up 6 terms, and I get negative 189. Now, one thing I do like about this is if I am not sure about the formula, can I find the first term? Plug in 1. To find the second term, plug in 2. To find the third term, plug in 3. You can do that all the way to 6 and then add them up if you're not sure of how to use the formula. All right, a different type of problem that you will see. S sub 10 for 3 minus 9 plus 27 minus 81. All right, so I do know my first term. My first term is 3. I know that my number of terms is going to be 10. I just need to know my ratio. To get my ratio, I take my second divided by my first, and I get negative 3. So my ratio is negative 3. Now put it into your formula. S sub 10 equals my first term, which is 3, times 1 minus your r is negative 3 to the 10th power all over 1 minus negative 3. When you put that into your calculator, the sum of the first 10 terms is negative 44,286. Okay, whole thing in the calculator, whole thing in your scientific calculator. All right, let's do a problem that's a little bit more difficult. It says, how many terms, so I'm looking for the n value, are there in a geometric series if the first term is 2, your common ratio is 3, and the sum is 728. So S sub n equals a sub 1 times 1 minus r to the n over 1 minus r. Okay, let's plug everything in. Your sum is 728 equals 2 times 1 minus 3 to the n all over 1 minus 3. Okay, so now 728 equals 2 times 1 minus 3 to the n, because I can't put those together. It has an exponent, over negative 2. Well, what you should notice right here is that and that will make it a negative 1. So I have 728 equals negative 1 times 1 minus 3 to the n. I'm going to distribute that negative. Well, how about we divide each side by that negative 1? I don't want to. So I get negative 728 equals 1 minus 3 to the n. Now I can subtract that 1. Negative 729 equals negative 3 to the n power. So this right here is where a lot of people make mistakes. That is like a negative 1 times 3 to the n. So again, I can divide by negative 1 and get 729 equals 3 to the n. Right here, folks, we have an exponential function. So I'm going to write it over here. 729 equals 3 to the n. Let's make it a logarithm. So log base 3 of 729 equals, it always equals your exponent, which is n. Now, you can put this into your calculator, alpha window 5, or you can do the change of base. Log divided by log. The base goes in the basement. And when you put this into your calculator, you should get 6. So there are 6 terms in this series. All right, so make sure you have a formula sheet written down. Put whatever you need to know what goes into those formulas. The difference between a sequence and a series is a list of numbers. A series is that list added together, so it's the sum of the list. And your assignment is on big ideas. 8.3b. Don't forget, contact your teacher if you are needing more help. And we have this lesson, tomorrow's lesson, then a review.